Hey, Chanel here. I have figured out a way to conquer the big problem of I have no time to sew. I'll show you what I did coming up. So I have this skirt that I've been wanting to make for a few months, and I just haven't been able to find the time to concentrate on my own stuff. So I thought, what if I practice my favorite philosophy of everyday effort? Everyday effort. 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day, and pretty soon your goal is met. So my goal is this one skirt that I made one a few months ago, and I just loved it. And so now I want to do this whole different one with the same pattern. So I know the pattern really well, and it's actually pretty simple. And so what if I just like break it into segments? The pattern instructions are into segments, so I'm going to break them into segments and just do 10, 15 minutes a day, or at least one segment a day. Some of them are harder than the others. And then I'll have my skirt before I know it. So I'll show you what I did. So here is the skirt pattern that I love. It's a vintage one from like 1998. I made one of these a few months ago, and I made it out of white and tie-dyed it and I didn't put any piping in here. I wanted to, but I put a trim on the splicing here. But now I want to put a piping in it because I think that actually will pronounce the seam, which is what I love about this skirt. So I have this fabric that I just love, and I bought it for my sewing retreat that I do, Camp Sew Social, and I had a bunch of fabrics there thinking that some of the ladies would want to use these fabrics, and I came home with these, so I used other fabrics, but this is called Luxe. Actually, there's another word for it. It starts with an S. They sell it at Joann's. It's 100% cotton. It's gorgeous. I even have I'm gonna have it in the blue and the black like this. So it's like a cotton sateen. It feels wonderful. And so I'm gonna make a skirt out of it. And I think it'll drape really well and everything. So what my goal is to do this skirt. There's this cut up into threes. So there's the top part, the middle part, and then the lower part right here. I'm gonna do this one here. And so I thought I'm gonna do 2 parts navy and 1 part gray. Sounds like a cocktail. But how this started was I went to the store and they had all these fat quarters on sale for like $1. So I bought a bunch of them, and they're all batiks. So I love these batiks. And then I was thinking, what would go good with these? Like, I want to put these 2 colors. So I came up with this top one. I ended up with this one here. And I'm gonna use it as the piping in between these 2 layers like this. So I wanna kind of just put a little bit of touch of this color in the seams and make it kind of unique. Problem is, I only bought 1 of these fat quarters, so this is all the fabric I have on this. So what I'm gonna do, and I guess, it's a selvage to the middle of, it's like 22 inches by 18 inches, something like that. And but I'm gonna try and squeeze out some piping and then just, sew them all together and see how far I can get with this. So that's my goal. My first step in all of this was deciding what to do. So that took me a good 15 minutes to kind of play around with the fabrics and decide on what this is. That was my first step to getting the skirt that I want. My next step is I'm gonna lay it out and cut it. So that's coming up. Okay, step 1 is to follow the marker cutting direction. It's called a marker, and cut this thing out. Although mine's gonna be a lot different because this pattern had a back to it. This is the plain back, and then the front was the splicing. I just cut 2 of these and have it spliced front and back. So I'm changing it around, and I have a contrast, so I don't follow any of this, but it'll all be fine. All right, segment 1, cut the skirt out. I decided to use pinking shears because this fabric shreds like crazy. So I'm gonna start cutting. I'm gonna use pinking shears so this fabric won't fray and make me crazy. This pattern only has 3 patterns, so it's very simple. It does have a waist pattern, but I just use a bias on the top. Here's one. Okay, I have this one pinned. Have my grain line all right. Just a little hair off on both sides here, but I don't have enough fabric, and I'll squeeze it in. I think it will be fine. Now I have it all cut out. Next I have to mark the notches. Actually, these are on the waist notches. I'm not even going to worry about those because I just put a bias on it. Got a side seam notch. Just do little ones. This pattern is real important not to forget the notches because they're so spliced up, the pieces, that you got to know what's going where. So this one has 2 notches on it. That's my upper front with those, and then this is the middle part, so it's a very strange shape, and their notches are here. That's where the middle part will get attached. I think there should be 2 there. And I guess this is where the lower part gets notched. I gotta get a notch in there. Like that. This is a side seam. The more you sew, the more all this makes sense. You know what's a side seam and what's not. So then I'm going to take off all these pins and I'm going to fold up. I'm not going to remove the pattern at all because, especially when I have a spliced up pattern like this, and when I get back to that, when I get into that segment of sewing it, it'll all be ready. So I have all these notched and fold it up. And now I've completed my first segment. On to day 2. Well, today is all about the bias strips, and I'm going to take my little piece of fabric and cut out as many as I can get in there. I plan on doing 1 1/4 inch strips, probably about 5/8 of an inch into the seam allowance, and the rest of it sticking out. It's about a 1/2 inch after that, and see how many I can get. So I'm going to sew all those together today, and then I can move on to the construction of the skirt. So this is how I'm going to do the bias strips. Okay, so I start off with a square piece of fabric. I got my selvage around here somewhere, I think it's right here, and line that up on the cutting board, and then I have this all squared up, and then because I'm going to need these exact corners here throughout the whole sewing, so I'm going to start with this fabric squared up. Then I'm going to use my 45-degree angle right here, or is it 90? Yeah, I always forget. I'm going to start in the corner on the selvage, get the line going, and then actually I already have them pre-done. I started over here. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. Started over here, and then I get this first line going, and then I take it and I do 1 1/4 inch strips, and I already have these all ready prepared. So I take the 1 1/4 inch strips, and they're all throughout here. I put it in red pen because the other pens just didn't show up. And I'm going to start with this piece here. It's pretty small, and I'm going to save this piece because I may run out. And I'm just going to start cutting my strips. And then I'll spend my 15 minutes today sewing them all together. And I'll be sewing these together here. I'm going to actually turn it right sides together here, sew it, and I'm just going to make one continuous bias strip, and that way I can put them into my seam allowance in my skirt. Okay, done with that. So all I have is this. This is what I did today. Not much. But actually, it's all these bias strips. And I just sewed them all together. I got all the little seams put together right here. Pressed them all open. I'll trim them when I get them into the seams, but I estimated enough to go to the front and the back of the skirt. So I think I should have enough. And I actually had a little left over. So I have this piece left over. I had plenty, I guess. When you actually make narrow strips, they don't really need that much. But I think what I'm going to do with this is use it to do the waist facing. Instead of a waistband on it, I'm just going to make this like bias strip. And what I have to do is double it over and make it a little bit thicker, a little bit wider, and then make it the waist facing, and that'd be cute. So hopefully I don't have to use this. I think I estimated enough. So I will be back tomorrow to do the next section. Well, I'm back at my studio. I've got it cut out, and then my bias strips cut out, and now it's time to sew. So that's my little, I'm going to do the first step today, and the instructions say to stay stitch the pieces. So I have 3 pieces for the front, 3 pieces for the back. That's a lot of stay stitching. But actually, I don't stay stitch a lot. I know like it's supposed to prevent stretching, so sometimes if it's like a big piece, it's a big piece, I'll stay stitch it, which these are big pieces. But my stay stitching is going to be, I'm going to put these the bias trim I made here. I'm going to baste it onto the pieces, and that's going to be my stay stitching. And then I can get on with finishing this up. So I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, so I've laid my bias strip onto the lower front, right side up, my middle part, and then this is the top part. Those will all get stitched together. So I'm just going to baste these on the fronts and the backs. Then I can stitch them together, and that will be my project today. Okay, so I have this laid out, how it's going to look. I got my top piece, my middle piece, and my bottom piece. I think it'd be easier to sew these two, the middle section and the lower section together first. So I've pinned them. That bias strip has hidden my notches, but I found them. So I pin those, and then sew those, and then I'll come back and sew that. And that will be that section. Well, that was easy. It's always easy in the beginning. It's when you get more into the meat of it, it gets a little harder. But I got my skirt done. I got the 3 pieces put together with the bias trim in the middle, and I did the front and the back. Man, this looks big. Holy cow. That's not a good word. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do tomorrow is press the seams up, and then I'm going to top stitch on all of these seams, because it'll be I'm going to do it in a contrast color. Don't know which one yet. It'll also keep the stitches, the seams up, and then it will give it a little decorative touch. So I'll be back for my next section tomorrow. Hey, Chanel here for another round of sewing, everyday effort. So I got my skirt pressed. I pressed the seams up towards the top, and then I did a little sample because I want to top stitch it, but I didn't know quite, I actually did a stretch stitch right here, and once you put those in, there's those stitches for knits, and there's 3 stitches on top of each other, so once you put those in, there's no going back. Well, there is, it just takes you a long time. But so I thought I'd put gray thread in there. I have a real pretty pearlized gray. Use that, and so I did a regular stitch here, and then a top stitch there, or the stretch stitch. And I think I'm just going to go with the regular stitch, because if I was using that stretch stitch, I'd like to make it a little bit closer to the seam, actually. Quite not, and the bias tape's a little bit wider than I was thinking it was going to be, but I could just totally go in there and trim it, but I think I'm just going to leave it, because that's really hard to trim once it's cut, and then I'll probably get all jagged edges. So I'm going to top stitch all that today, and that's what I'm doing today. Got that done. So I just top stitched it all there. All my little panels are done. Takes some time because you gotta really make sure it's even so it looks professional. But it's looking really good. This is pretty. It's gonna be different. Huh. Okay. Now we get on to the hard stuff. Gotta put a zipper in, and I've lost my, oh, this zipper doesn't have a tab on it. Gotta find another zipper. I'm kinda out of zippers. I didn't have time to go to the store. Might see if I can find a black one. It's close enough here. I have lost my zipper foot, invisible zipper foot. I took it to my retreat and I don't think it ever made it home, so I'm gonna have to figure out a way to, well, I've done them with regular feet, but it just makes it harder, so yay, gonna look forward to that one tomorrow. So see you tomorrow. Well, I'm back in the studio today to do the zipper part. Got my zipper, invisible zipper, basted on. I'm using black because the navy one I had didn't have a tab on it. And but black, it's invisible. It's supposed to be invisible. You're not supposed to see it. There's only one problem. I still can't find my invisible zipper foot. It makes it a little bit easier to put this on. Although I had another foot that, I don't even know what kind of foot it was, like a sliding foot. It was plastic and you can kind of see through it. And it worked better than my invisible zipper foot, although I don't even know what it was for. But so I have to use a regular presser foot and try to get just, on invisible zippers, you just have to like fold this out and stitch real close into that zipper part, and that's it. So I should be able to get it done. So I basted this zipper on at the edge here so it doesn't slide around, and hopefully I'll get that in there. So I'm gonna get that done. Okay, first step, get this opened up. See if I can get it in there. See how close I can get to the teeth without getting them caught. It's all about how close you can get. Sometimes you can sew it and then just keep sewing it till you get as close as you need. And then there's my mark right there. So sounds like the machine's messing up. There's it. Okay. See, it's all doable. And then it's, yep, pretty close. That's looking pretty good. I think that should do it. Okay, now I got to get to the other side. Okay, so I pinned the next side up. The most important thing on invisible zipper is to have the marks where that stops or starts, or kind of like where I guess the end is. And also, if you get a zipper that's longer than what it asks for, it actually makes getting it in there easier because you can always cut this tab part off. So what I would do first, because I don't have the proper foot, and actually even if I did, it would be, makes this easier, is I'm going to baste this zipper down. Let's put it on 4 and keep it in place so I don't have to worry about the pins. I'll have to do a whole tutorial on invisible zippers. Kind of hard to explain. And I also have it a total like 5/8 inch mark right here. So I'm putting it right in the 5/8 inch. Baste that. And then I'm going to put the other foot back on. Like that. And then I got to get it right where that chalk mark is. Right there. And I'm just going to put the needle down right there. Open that up again. and then the stitches. The machine's sounding kind of funny. And then I'm gonna, put it on baste. I never sew on a tight stitch anyway. I usually sew on like number 3 of my machine. It's so really close. Hard to do it on a black zipper because it's harder to see. Okay. Now I got that in. I always like to cut the threads before I finish stuff up. One of my pet peeves is threads crazy hanging around. Then I'm going to zip it up. This. Ta-da! It's a pretty nice zipper. Wow. Turned out good. You kind of see it's black there. If I need to get any closer, I can just go in and stitch closer. And now I have to, see, the goal is to get these two right at the same edge. And then you gotta go in there and sew up the side seams. That's a tricky part too. And I like to take that up to the table and get that all planned out. Then all I gotta do is get in here. I'll probably have to get in this part with the zipper foot right here, and then I sew it a little bit ways down, and then I take that off and put on the regular foot and sew up the side seams. So I'm going to finish that right up. Well, got that done. So section off. That was fun, actually, I guess. So I got my zipper done. I got all my side seams are matching up perfectly. They look really good. And what I did when I have to match up a lot of parts, you just really make sure everything is matched at the raw edges, and you sew it on 5/8 of a seam allowance, and everything from there just matches up. When it doesn't, it's when some seams are sewed at 3/8 and some were 3/4 and some were, in between there, or one side was a little shorter than the other, the raw edges weren't matched up, then things don't match up. But when you're doing these kind of spliced things, you want to make sure every seam allowance is good, and then it all matches up. So tomorrow I will come in and do the waistband. I'm just gonna use this trim fabric here, cut a bias strip and sew it on and roll it inside out and do a top stitch on top of that also. And then I'm onto the hem, and then I can wear it. See you tomorrow. Well, I'm back for the next section, and that section is the waistband. I'm gonna use the leftover piece of fabric here, and I'm gonna cut, I still have the marks from cutting them out the trim. They were 1 1/4 inch. Instead of cutting that mark there, I'm gonna cut at the second mark, which will now make it a 2 1/2 inch strip. So I'll just cut them, fold it in half, and then sew it on the band and make it into the waistband on there. The directions, my section of the day would have been this facing, the waist facing, but I like it to do this. It's sometimes easier and faster, and I like the pop of color on it. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, so I'm gonna cut on the second line here and sew them together. This one has a funny little peak here, so that's not going to work. I just have to use that side there. And here's a second line. All right. And I'll take these two, sew those two together. I think that's my right side. Which one's the right side? I think it's that one. Yes. Put these two together like this. So 1/4 inch right there. It becomes my facing. That should be enough, I hope. And and I just stitch it and sew it on there. Okay, got my bias strip prepared, got it folded over, pressed, all that. Now I just got to attach it to the skirt waistband. I'm going to just take it, the zipper side, extend it a little bit past here, and pin it along the waistband. I overlocked the top of this too because it was fraying like crazy. And this, since it's bias, I give it just a tad of a stretch right here, and help it roll inside out. I'll just pin this, and then I'm going to go sew this 5/8 because that's what the facing would have been, and then turn it inside out. Well, I got that stitched on. That was easy. So I basically just did sewed the bias thing down 5/8 of an inch down, right sides together. Then I roll it over. I actually pressed the seam up towards the facing like that, and a really good press really helps it roll inside. And most facings you do like an understitch right on the top, right here close to the edge, that helps it roll in. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll it in and then top stitch it on the outside, and that will just anchor that all the way down and around. So just a little top stitch, and I'll probably top stitch it in navy. And then what to do with the end pieces at the zipper, the first part I put it on the left side because I'll put the zipper on my left side, and so rolls over that way. I don't know how to explain that part, but so I'm going to take this part here, cup up that fabric there, and then stitch it down onto the iron, or onto the zipper tape, so that it looks like that on the outside and then on the inside. And then this part right here, I'm glad I have extra, because I could just do the same thing to the back like that and do it both on there, but this part always hurts when you're wearing it. It's like right on your skin. So what I'm going to do is roll that this way and then put like a snap over here, and it will totally cover up that edge of the zipper right there, and you won't see it right there. So that'll just go in there in a snap, and then that waistband will be done. So then I'm gonna come back tomorrow and finish the hem. I'm back. Now all I have to do is hem this skirt. I actually just have this all finished here, and I got the little tab over there. What I did was I put Velcro, just like a little drop of Velcro, so that it won't be even that bulky, and then just move it over that way. This was that sticky Velcro, but it never does stick, you know, so you have to sew it down. So that was done yesterday, and now I just have to hem this thing. So this hem has a odd shape to it. It's got part gray, part navy to top it off, and then this angle. So I think to tackle this, what I'm going to do is mark it up an inch all the way around. So I just you press it an inch first, and then you fold it under to meet the crease, and then I'll just do like a top stitch on there. And I'm going to switch out the thread too. I'm going to put gray on here. Unless it might look kind of cool if actually I'll do gray all the way through the navy, because all my top stitched was gray on here. So that's cool. So that's all I have to do. That's my next section I'm going to do today. Then I have a new skirt. I'm going to get to that right now. Okay, got my hem all prepared. The hard part is this. I'm going to have to stitch it from the top, and because I want it to be really even, and sometimes if I stitch it from the bottom, which is the easiest part because you can see that seam, sometimes it doesn't always go straight. But in the top thread always kind of looks the best anyway. So what I've done here is I just folded it up 1 inch. I got my first crease really put in there good, and then I folded it halfway, and then went the other part right here, so it's nice and smooth that way. And then right here I just kind of tucked it under like that, and I'm just going to stitch it around here. Hopefully that holds pretty good. I might have to go in there with a little bit of a hand stitch. and finish it up. So I'm gonna stitch this and then I'll be done. Okay, I finally finished my skirt. Although it was only like a week, so I don't know how many steps I did, but it felt like, I don't know. I have to go back and count them. But just doing them in segments, really, it's like, it felt like nothing. It was like I cut it one day and then I sewed part of it and then I have a brand new skirt. So I could have thought about it for a week, or I could have just got busy and did a section at a time, and it went pretty fast. I think the longest part of it that took was probably putting these bindings on, and but that's actually the funnest part. I like to see how these turn out. So hem's all done. I think it came out pretty good. Let me see if you can see the end of it. It looks good on the inside, and on the contrast part here, I think it turned out pretty good. And now I'm gonna try this on, show you a picture. I have a new skirt. Problem is, I didn't pre-wash it, so now I gotta dry clean it. But that's okay because it's glossy and all. I think washing would kind of ruin all this stuff too. So I got a new skirt. Well, there is my skirt. It looks really great. I love the way this turned out. This is gonna be fun to wear. Wow, I just wear solid stuff on top. Simple little skirt. That was pretty easy to make. I really like doing this segment a little bit a day, because then I have a new skirt. So now I'm on to my next project. See you next time.